All right, good morning, everybody. Let's start this Euro session stream. As always, we're going to be looking at some levels that may come into play later in the day. We had CPI yesterday, so copper did go on a bit of a run, but let's just check the calendar. Welcome to the show here. If you're here for the first time, just randomly stumbled across the stream. I'm Market Stalker D. I've been trading for 18 years. Even though I look like a kid, I am not. And I've been a prop trader for about 12 years. I've specialized in energies and precious metals, with heavy focus being on the energies mainly. And yeah, so you're going to see some alternative products that we don't really cover all that much. Usually it's just thank you. But over here, we're focusing on things like natural gas, copper, bit of gold, platinum. Because contrary to popular belief, there are other products out there. Believe it or not. Now, it is August, right? So August, especially this part of it, so second part of August, tends to be a bit strange. It tends to be lower liquidity. So you will see domes that are kind of patchy. You will see not too many orders floating around for a very simple reason that many of the big boys with deep pockets, they go off on vacations and holidays. So naturally, that is reflected in the liquidity of the market. But having said that, you can also have low liquidity zombie rallies like we've seen on equities yesterday post CPI. Do we have anything of note today? We have crude oil inventories later on. That is 9:30 a.m. Central, which is 3:30 p.m. in England, which is where I am located. Apart from that, we have, Trump speaking. That's kind of a daily occurrence at this point. Maybe some news over Russia and Ukraine conflict. So yeah, but before we carry on into any sort of analysis, just remember this is all for educational purposes only. Even though I am Series 3 qualified, I am not a CTA, nor do I plan to be in the future. Bruno posted a risk disclosure at the beginning of the chat, so please familiarize yourself with that disclaimer so that we're all on the same page. Anyways, let's sure life hacks. The other products they know are M&Q. Yes, absolutely. And, I do feel that they're missing out on some of the, copper in particular. Like, copper is such a beautiful product. When it does go into a trend, you can just look for a good reversal to swipe another long. So you look for a pullback that looks like a reversal, but then it kind of touches either VWAP or the initial balance outer edge, and suddenly it keeps going. So, something to keep in mind. But yeah, let's have a look at some of these profiles, options levels, and the average ranges. This is my 3 cornerstones of how I do things, and the fourth being time of day. So until things liven up, I am actually locking up my live account every day to only trade after 9 a.m. Central, and that is connected to my own performance stats. Because really, for this time of day, I would prefer to trade DAX. So we're still waiting for DAX to come in, and we shall be waiting until that happens. And in the meantime, let's have a look at copper and natural gas. Now, whenever copper goes into a nice trending move, there is always a chance of a pullback. I'm going to start my analysis on a very large time frame, and I do not mean 1 hour. I actually mean a monthly chart, because very frequently you can notice certain behaviors that most people won't be aware of, primarily because they think they're just intraday traders and they don't want to look at anything bigger than a 1 hour. I think that's a mistake. I think large time frames is where the true context lies, and I like to do the multi-time frame analysis, starting from the multi-chart, working my way down, and only really when I get to intraday time frames I start to analyze the profiles. I'm not interested in large time frame profiles because I look at the larger time frames in a somewhat simpler way. I look at it from the supply and demand formations, which carry a certain behavior of price inside it. So what do we have? Now, if you look back through all the way till March 22nd, 2022, so you always had this behavior of creating a new all-time high, reversing, and then kicking off another sell-off. And here it is again in 1st of May 2024, all-time high, big selling wick, reversal for the entirety of the next month. And here it is again. We're kind of doing the same thing now with a little bit of a different twist. So the sell-off actually happened all at once. What does that mean? Well, it means a pullback is imminent. There is a very good chance that we go up and test 478 before we see more selling. But 478 remains that large context, bird's eye view area where we want to make sure that we're not really maybe longing into that, but instead to stop, pause, and go, hold up a minute. Let me see if I can get on the other side, because nobody else in the retail side of things is not, they won't be looking at that, but you will. So there you go. All right, so now that we know what's going on in the monthly, let's check the weekly charts. There was this this big fat finger moment that we never really recovered from. Is that a bad thing? Maybe. Was it really a fat finger trade? We'll never know. But it's certainly interesting that whoever decided to plow in 4,000 contracts in copper, obviously they took the entirety of the order book and then it just settled. And now we're settled into August, near some of these weekly demand areas or support, however you want to call it. But today we're sitting above the London value high. And we're sitting quite far up. So to me, I don't really like to go with the trend unless we have a pullback. And when it comes to COMEX value area, we're right in the middle of it, literally like sitting at point of control, which is located at 452.20. And point of control, contrary to popular belief, is not really any kind of control. It's actually the middle of the middle. It is the widest point of the profile. And unless that's your target, I wouldn't really be doing any trades that start from a point of control on an intraday time frame. Now, on a larger time frame, that's a little bit different, especially if you take a look at volume point of control. Volume point of control is a slightly different measure, because it usually accompanies accumulation or distribution activities on those large time frames, therefore creating support or resistance. So that's a little bit different because of the amount of trading that goes into those sorts of levels. And very frequently, if you have a large time frame, here on Topstep, I have the volume profile visible range. And you can see that we're actually bouncing from that point of control where we built up quite a lot of volume. Having said that, this whole area, all the way up to, let's say, 490, is a very, very thick volume area. So I would say maybe a range of some sort is happening. And we know that we have the 478 as the monthly edge of the newly formed supply. So wouldn't be surprised if we go up there at some point. When, I don't know. I can see the same thing that you do, maybe with a little bit of lens into some other activities, but generally no recovery basically means that we have a good chance of rotating higher. But I'm also aware of the habit of copper to go into an all-time high, reverse, and then to keep going. So we'll see what the day brings. So far, a little bit mixed for me. If I look at the profile, yes, we're opening above London value. That was thanks to the CPI, pushed it into a trend. And every time copper goes into a trend, there is a chance that we go into yet another pullback before they carry on towards the 478 area. Daily chart. Kind of a slow grind up. Don't really like this to kind of call a trend because there's a lot of overlaps in the candles, which means there's no true commitment despite the larger day yesterday. No real commitment in this trend. It's just slowly trickling higher. You can see the volumes are not that great either. So if we go back, and copper will start to liven up sort of after Labor Day again when everybody comes back to their desks. But for now, it's all just a little bit meh. So we need to be careful not to do a million trades, flipping and flopping. Yesterday I did do like 5 trades, but it was all just stuttering around like 15 to 20 ticks, and it was all very painful. So I ended up the day scratch, slight minus, but as you can see, I stayed true with my 5 trades per day. Couldn't really make that work, and that was my cue to end the day and to go and do something else. So we actually had a very nice woodland walk in a secure area in my village down the road. It's actually a neighboring village. So we took all the dogs there. Then we put the fire pit on and just spent the evening chilling out and relaxing. We even had 2 frogs that came to visit, so it was a very exciting evening. But yeah, so from the profile perspective, copper is attempting to go lower. So they tested, the wizards. The institutional traders are usually the most active during that first hour of any session, even though arguably copper tends to pick up for the London Metal Exchange Open, the LME Open, which is not really starting until another couple of hours. So, we'll see whether they can make anything, whether they can commit to any side. But at the moment, what do we have? Open above value, a little bit higher up. So the open was actually just over 1%, so 1.2%. Which means it's a little bit of a larger gap that doesn't always get filled, but they certainly make an attempt to do so. Looking at the options levels, we do have a gamma wall with some calls from the 0 DTE options sitting at 450. So maybe, just maybe, a test of the 450 where I can also see a little bit of support. This was overnight trading, so Globex did that shakeout they usually do, established a low, and then was slowly trickling higher. Now, with the intercession behaviors, you usually have this session chase, and it is a part of my method, where one session does one thing, another session does another thing, and they kind of chase each other. I call it the Tom and Jerry chase, because if you see Asia going up, usually on a lot of the days London will be heading down, and then it depends what happens during COMEX. They will either continue the London move if we're in some kind of a trending market state, or they will actually reverse it yet again post NY cut, which is like post 9 a.m. Central, and those kind of setups are where I'm the strongest. So that's where my probabilities, all of my P&L from thousands and thousands of trades that I've done over the years, that's where it always tells me that my strength is. And, remember, I worked for American prop firms, which means that I was very rarely trading London. And really, I started trading London maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, and I only traded DAX for London. That was like my primary product for that time frame. I carried on with my energies trades, and I was a crude oil trader almost exclusively, also with gold mixed in whenever crude oil would go a little bit weird. So I kind of consider myself more energies trader than anything else. But over the last couple of years, I have looked at some other metals and other energies. Also traded natural gas intermittently, the famous Widowmaker. As a Widowmaker. Why the Widowmaker? Why is it called the Widowmaker in the industry? Well, it's called that because it likes to open weekends with like 5% gap, 10% gap. And if you're running a swing trade, that can get very painful if it's against your position. Ergo, the Widowmaker. So, yeah. All right, so let me have a look at Bookmap for a second here, just so I can get some context. Now, we do have a gamma exposure level at 451. It's one of the stronger ones. It's GEX 3, but gamma wall is like literally just underneath that. Overall delta is a little negative, so minus 89 on copper. And that is, at the moment, in the last 45 minutes or so, certainly congruent with direction. Do we have any other orders laying here? Not really. So let's go ahead and try this initial bounce extension to the downside as kind of the first. Let me just get rid of these percentages because that's annoying me. Let's go back to ticks for a second. And I'm going to use a fairly wide 45 tick stop because I do not want to be wigged out. And I'm going to place the profit at ballpark 1-to-1. Again, it is summer. So if you're aiming for a bazillion R and you're not in a zombie rally on an equity index, probably not the best thing to be doing. But yeah, so I just want to be comfortable with the stop loss to make sure I'm not nitpicking and that the low volatility environment doesn't wick me out, tick me out, and then go back and do whatever they were going to do anyway. That happens a lot during the summertime, and especially the more gappy the markets are on the dome, the more likelihood that that will happen. Like, for example, if you look at platinum, you will see that there's a huge hole here from 13.59.8 all the way down to 13.59.5. So whole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ticks where there's nothing going on. So what happens if somebody comes in with a slightly larger order? Well, what's going to happen is that they're just going to take the majority of that pricing, and suddenly you're going to teleport down at 59.5, and you're like, what happened? Well, that happened. So yeah, I'm not in favor of nitpicking on stops at the best of times, and the summertime is the worst time to be doing that. So those frogs from last night have gotten into my throat, so let me just try and clear my throat. All right. Now, here's another little rule. If this trade does not make any traction and the first move that they do gets up to just above 453, that's going to be my exit. But I'm not going to move my stop there just in case that they're wiggling around. So just know, because it's a time-based thing as well, because I don't really care if they're going to spend in and around my entry for an extended period of time, but I do care if the very first move that they do is almost an immediate smash against my trade. At that point, I try and close it if I'm actively watching it and not running the stream and doing a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, so it's one of my rules. Desmond says, good morning, Dee. Are there more GEX levels beyond 3410 in GC? Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be more levels. So we have 3420, which is GEX 3. And then we have the implied volatility high up at 3431, where we also have a minor GEX level number 5 at 3430. So yes, they are up there, but But the 3410 has been sort of a pivotal area. All right, so let's just talk about Jerome for a second, because Hardeep is asking, and he's asking where's Jerome. So I feel the need to be very straightforward with everybody. How should we put this? Okay, so Jerome did something that is heavily frowned upon in the prop industry. There were allegations of hedging, and that a lot of the profits that he was doing was a result of hedging with a group of people. Naturally, we take those kinds of activities, which are borderline gaming the system, very seriously. So naturally, we're not really able to continue our collaboration with Jerome because of that. And there were some really strong indications and strong data that hedging activity brought the profits that he had. So I am very disappointed. I am very shocked, to be honest. And unfortunately, we won't be able to carry on with Neuro Wednesdays until we find a European-based neuroscience person. So that might happen at some point again, but it's not going to be Jerome, unfortunately. So just wanted to clear the air, because I know that many of you loved Neuro Wednesdays. I loved it as well. It was very transformative, so we're not going to knock his specialty in that area. I just don't think that the hedging activities is very conducive to the integrity to somebody with a doctor before their name. So it's very sad. I was very shocked, just like obviously the rest of you. And that's just how it is. You know, people make their choices, and as a result, there are some consequences around it. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Unfortunately, we cannot have Neuro Wednesdays at the moment. But if we do manage to find another doctor who's also a trader and is willing to, be here for us for the European markets, I will be restarting Neuro Wednesdays with that person. But unfortunately, Jerome is out. So there you go. Take it as you will. Joe trades, how does that work, hedging with a group? Listen, I wouldn't know, because I never tried that, nor has it ever occurred to me. And when you're working at an institutional level, that's actually illegal to do. To have, doing one thing at one firm and another thing at another firm, that is, heavily frowned upon. And even doing it inside your own firm. Having one person go long, the other person go short, and we were just like, yeah, let's just share in the profits. I don't know how it works, right? Because I've never done that, so don't ask me. But we all say that hedging between the same product, like hedging and Q short, hedging and Q, like let's say me and Bruno, right? We collude that one of us is going to go short, the other one's going to go long, and then we're just going to let it run. So whoever wins, we share in the profits. I suppose that's how it would work, but very frowned upon, because it's gaming the system. You're not actually doing a strategy and relying on a risk model. You're relying on one of you to kind of win. So, let's move on from that, because I don't want to be, making this whole show because, Jerome did something that he shouldn't have. And like I said, I'm very shocked, very disappointed, very sad. Very sad. It was a huge shock, to be honest, for me. And, we were also becoming friends. I thought he was a very cool dude. So, yeah, people disappoint you, and you just have to deal with it. That's why I don't like most humans. Can't trust anyone these days. Like, what's going on? Isaac says, are you talking about the lady and guy people that came on lately, guy people? There was Dr. Vanessa and there was Dr. Jerome, and yes, they did do a show together. We were actually going to run the Fridays as a Jerome segment. Like, there was so many things that were going to happen, and I can't for the life of me understand why you would just throw that away. But hey, you know, we all have different goals in life. So I wish all the best to him. You know, obviously some decisions were made there that were not in the best interest of everyone involved, and that's going to be the end of it. All right, let's have a look at natural gas, because natural gas to me, it just kept getting smashed last night. Smashy. Again, much like copper, there is a chance that we go into a correction today. So I'm actually going to make a punt, even though it's super early for natural gas, and it doesn't usually liven up all that much until about 11 o'clock my time, which is in another hour. But it's kind of failing the auction here. The auction is very tiny. The initial balance size is only 17 ticks, whereas the entire London session for now is 26 ticks. So actually I'm going to do one. This is a punt. So likewise, 35 tick stop, as I always do on natural gas, because that is what it calls for. But because I'm looking for a slightly bigger move as a corrective reflexive bounce, I'm willing to wait for it to reach the London average session range low, which is sitting at about 288, let's say, which is just underneath GEX 1. We do have GEX 2 in the way at 285, so that might be an area that puts a stop to this rise. But if not, then we have a pretty clean outlook to GEX 1. Right Investment says, if trading is about managing risk, why would you not want to hedge if possible? It's covering you either way, because that is not the point of intraday trading. If you want to hedge, you will typically do that with one option and then an outright futures position. So if one loses, you're still covered on the other side. You would not do it by going long and short on NQ at the same time. Okay? And then if you do go long and short at the same time, the problem is there is no profits there. You're locked in. Whereas with the options, it's a different product, and you have the Greeks that modify the, and, you know, skew the, all right, so don't like this copper, so I'm going to close that. And, you know, this is because it went up before it did anything else. So immediate close of the trade, early exit. Don't want to see that. But yeah, the hedging, the way you should be doing it is through another vehicle or another correlated product that is not completely the same. But gaming the system is one person always losing and the other person, or vice versa, right? One person always goes long, the other person always goes short at the same time. How do you make money out of that? You don't, unless you take the profits of the person that did well and then share. Because it's the same product. So if you do a hedge, you're locked in. There's no profits. So, you know, gaming the system means that, let's say you go to another firm and you go long on NQ there, short on NQ on Topstep X, no stops, no nothing, and you just let it run, and whichever side wins, that's where you get your profits. Understand? But what happens to the other firm? They just see losing, and not knowing that you don't have a strategy. You're just basically taking a punt. Understand how that could be a problem? So no strategy, just literally rolling a dice both ends and hoping that you're going to get a move large enough in either direction. That's not how hedging is done, okay? That is not how that's done. If you want to hedge, you use an option, and then you use an outright futures product. So let's say you do, you know, long put in NQ, but you also go long on outright futures. That's a hedge, and that's legal. But, you know, anything else? Very dodgy, man. Very dodgy. Joe Trades in Spain says, not to derail you, you mentioned to me looking at DAX, but what time frame? Because I looked it up on TradingView and the chart looked funky. Now, are you looking at FDXMU? Because that is what you should be looking at. So I'm just going to drag over. Because I have it on TradingView because of the TradingView Mentor Q. This is what it should be looking like. This is your actual thing. Now there is a full DAX that's FDAX U. So that's a full DAX that's very expensive. It's 25 euros per tick. This is a mini DAX, which is 5 euros per tick. And you also have micro DAX, which is €1 per tick. But that is what you need to have. FDXMU 2025 is the contract we're trading right now. And the rollover will be coming in September. Oh joy, oh joy. But yeah, so make sure you have the right product. You will probably not have Eurex immediately, so you will probably have to buy the Eurex exchange, so it's not delayed. Yeah. Glad to be of service, Joe. Yeah. Hardeep says, D, for the first time ever, I tried copy trading in 2 accounts, failed combines 2 times, passed in 3rd go, and make it to payout, then lost accounts today. I take full responsibility. I'm glad you take full responsibility, but I would say stick away from copy trading until you are able to pull at least 1 monthly payout for 3 months solid. Don't copy trade. Prove yourself first. Don't just go losing. You're still in that boom bust cycle where you're trying to do something ahead of the game. You're effectively going to the Olympics before you've qualified for the Olympics and trying to run with everybody else who's already got the skills to do it. And what you're doing is just amplifying your, you're literally just amplifying your costs, your upfront costs, before you know that you can pull money out of the markets consistently over a longer period of time, Vince is asking, is there a reason or news about natural gas that made you bullish about it? I don't trade NG. Let's have a look at the monthly chart. 1 month. Let's make it a little bit less crazy. What do you see here? We have weekly and monthly demands that we're coming into. Exactly where we are right now, it's actually the low, monthly low of the bounce after the reversal happened in November 2024. So the demand area, coupled with the huge smash and a quick jump off the hill that we had yesterday into the demand from a very larger time frame, was one reason. Another reason was that we're failing the auction and we are technically sitting above Globex VWAP exactly the same time when we failed the auction. I also know the behavior of natural gas. So anytime you have a huge day like this was yesterday, so it was just relentless. It just kept smashing into it. Every time it tried to pull back, there was like more and more sellers. It was just like smashing it. It wasn't until this is my day range fill trade, one of the ones that did succeed, but I didn't manage to get too much out of it because again, you only have the day range fill trade into settlement usually carries the take profit target of maximum 40 ticks in normal times. So even if you manage to hold the day together, you get to the end of the day and you're like, okay, I'm just going to do the fade now. So I looked at it, identified it, and then I just basically pulled the day back into scratch territory. That was how it usually works for me. If I'd maybe been just super patient and not traded any other products apart from natural gas, patiently waited until my 7 p.m. and swiped that, I would be sitting at, let's have a look. I would be sitting at probably about 30 ticks, so about 300 points. Sorry, $300. And that would have been my day. But I tried trading, what did I try trading yesterday? So I tried trading copper, tried fading it. That was a scratch trade. Didn't really go anywhere. Then what else was I trading? I tried trading gold. That didn't really move at the time of day when I was looking at it. It was just like dead. And yeah, I didn't really try trading natural gas. No, actually I did, but I bailed. Yes, I remember now. So here's what happened. I tried shorting it. I think it was up here. Or was it somewhere in here? Yeah, and then I saw it kind of go against me. So I was like, I'm just going to close it. So when it got to my entry, I closed it again for scratch. It was just like, should have just held it. I should have been my D self, holding trades forever. But I didn't do that because it kind of looked like it was going to fill the range. So I decided to close it. That was a bad decision, right? But yeah, didn't lose anything. I just didn't win anything either. So yeah, today it's got a lot more clear for me because we have some contextual things happening both on the larger time frames and on the lower time frames. So now what can happen is the fill of this at least a partial fill of the single prints that we left behind. So I'm gonna take you through some higher time frames, and we had single prints galore yesterday. I mean, they just kept getting created. So if it starts to run through them, usually those moves are pretty relentless, and as you can see, the volume is much thinner in that area, so we kind of settled here. Built up some volume, created a new point of control in the 1 hour. If we confidently start chewing into these areas, they are a weak structure that needs repair, and typically those tend to be pretty tasty. So yeah, failed auction on the intraday time frame, gap down in relation to yesterday's London value with lots of single prints left behind, weak structure, volume profile, gluing away from the big volume nodes, hopefully going into it's still not done, right? We still need to see it pop into this low volume area, which is above 282. If it holds into it, I will be a lot more confident to hold it much longer, and then to basically wait for at least the London ASR session high. So that's average session range high, kind of like ADR high. But I use them as levels. I'm actually the originator of that idea to start using ADR as an actual level on the chart, almost like a volatility band, but based on hard mean averages across a number of days. So it is a dynamically calculated measure, but it's not going to change like every day, right? It's going to change if you, let's say we make a new high of the day here. The ADR low is going to be pulled up, and right now ADR low is set at 274. So if we get the move higher, that one is going to get pulled up a little bit more. So that's how we calculate it. And then this one, it will just stay there because we already had an established session low. But if the session low gets created, so if I'm wrong and it starts bleeding down again, then the London average session high is going to start coming down, if that makes sense. So it's a dynamically calculated measure. It's not just like, 10 days divided by, the average movement. So it's a twist on the idea that basically you have an average number of ticks that the product moves. I'm actually preparing a longer form, not like long form, it's probably just going to be like 10 minutes long, but I'm preparing a long-term YouTube video, long-form YouTube video to be posted on my channel. I have been a bit quiet over there. I have been struggling with my energy levels a lot recently. But yeah, I really want to get that out because a lot of people want to know what it's about, and I realize I've never really talked about it. And I quite like to create a talking head video using my charts, using the charts that I normally use. We all obviously have an indicator called Blatek DR that is currently only on MetaTrader 5. I talk about this nearly daily. It was the largest retail platform at the time when we were creating it back in 2015. It's gone through a number of updates. But yeah, it's time to kind of bring that knowledge to wider audiences. If you want to check that out, feel free to check out my channel, which Topstep have kindly placed. They've always been very, very supportive of all of my ventures, and they put both my Twitter and my YouTube channel underneath this video. So, if you want to go and subscribe to that, I would really appreciate that. Would love to see you over there. I don't really do many live streams on there. I find that because I'm doing daily live streams here, it does affect me a lot. I'm not exactly the healthiest person. I had a vaccine injury in 2021. And I have been struggling with mystery illnesses ever since. So that affects my energy levels. That interferes with my ability to just keep working with no naps, no pain, no all of that. So I have been quiet on the channel for that very reason. But yeah, I do want to at least kind of force myself to try and make at least one monthly long form video. So I will be restarting that. I don't know whether I'll have enough juice in my energy levels to actually do a live stream. Because that would mean some days when I'm on the main broadcast and I'm doing these trades, these sessions, that would mean me doing effectively three live streams per day. And when I'm streaming for 2 hours. Like, it's not just like an hour or 90 minutes. It's like, we're sitting there, we're chatting, we're going through at least 1.5 day trading time zone, and we're just kind of having a good time, and, it's very informal. But my long form videos, I feel like I can bring a lot of value in a condensed format that, you don't have to sit through 90 minutes of it. And I also like to put humor to it. I like to put funny memes and, little funny sound effects. So yeah, I haven't actually done a long form video since I moved to the new house. One of the videos that I want to do, my sofas are arriving sometime in this way, like in the next sort of 3 to 5 days. So once they're there, I actually want to show you my new home, because I'm very, very happy that we managed to find this home. It's so non-English. It looks like a massive shed. It's all one story, single story. We have a pretty sizable garden out the back, and we have farms either end. They're not our farms, but they are, obviously there's farmland around us. So yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Tostino says, I'm a big fan of your long forms. Thank you. Yeah. Short Life Hack says, my energy is worse, hence some high of Celsius retro vibe. I have Celsius, but man, it does absolutely nothing for me. It's the craziest thing. I think I react to taurine as if it's a sedative. I'm one of those weirdos, right? I have like a whole Celsius, which packs a punch, even over here, because I know that you guys have like 200 milligrams. Over here, that's slightly against the rules of the equivalent of the Food and Drug Administration in the UK. So we're at 120, but I have it, and I just feel sleepy. I just, it doesn't work on me. It's weird. Coffee, pure caffeine, without taurine, that brings me a little bit of energy. But even there, I don't know whether I'm like just metabolizing caffeine like it's going out of fashion or what. But I'm able to have so much caffeine in the day. And I'm not super wired. I'm just like, meh, whatever. So I don't know. There's something odd in the way I process caffeine. I'm very, very tolerant to stimulants. My husband, he is completely intolerant to stimulants. Like, he steps on a tea bag and he's going to be feeling wired. I'm not like that at all. So yeah, I do have Celsius. I tried it. It's a nice drink, but it doesn't really do much for my energy levels. So yeah. Isaac wants to know, what have you been struggling with, Dee? Okay, so it's basically what they now know is myalgic encephalomyelitis. It's ME/CFS. It's a systemic illness that used to be diagnosed as a psychological illness, which is nonsense, because I can tell you that It's definitely biological. I was a high-level athlete before it hit me. I have a clean timeline of when it hit me because it was a result of a vaccine injury. So here's how it went. 2 doses of Pfizer, nothing. Great. Everything went swimmingly well. Booster, done 3 months after because Boris Johnson told us that if you want to travel, and there was a whole bunch of stuff that happened around about that time. My dad was ill. He was in hospital. He wasn't well. I was supposed to travel. It was the end of 2021. So still weirdness over like COVID. Are we going to have another lockdown? Are we not going to have? So he's announced that whoever is eligible for a vaccine, for a booster, even if you've had it in the last 3 months, especially if you want to travel, you have to be fully boosted. Also around about that time, our puppies were born. So all of this stuff is happening. My dad's in hospital, like on his deathbed. I need to travel. Puppies are crawling around everywhere. We're not sleeping. So I thought, well, obviously I want to be healthy, right? It was like done out of the best intention. But mindful that, yes, I only had the vaccine barely 4 months before. I did it. So I went and got boosted. 24 hours later, I got a weird rash on my neck. Now, I do have a contact allergy that I've been struggling with since like I was 12. So I can't really have fake jewelry. I can't have anything that's like not like, this is why you don't see me wearing jewelry. I have my white gold marriage and engagement ring because I don't like too many rings. So I only have one. But yeah, basically it's just a Tiffany's ring, and that's pretty much the only jewelry you see me wear, and that's because I react to nearly everything. Sometimes even silver I can react to. So around about that time, I bought some new earrings, and I thought to myself, maybe it's just an allergy from that. But at the same time, it looked weird. It looked like almost like lesions or something. So I was like, that looks very weird. So I phoned up the doctors, and if you know how it was back then in the UK, unless you were imminently dying, they just would not see you. So I just had a conversation. I said that I had the vaccine yesterday. Something's up. It's very itchy, very painful. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, long story short, it ended up being a shingles reactivation. So what we now know about both the vaccines and COVID is that they reactivate old viruses that kind of sit there. So whatever old virus you have, it could be Epstein-Barr, it could be Lyme virus, it could be, so if you've ever been bitten by a tick and ended up with Lyme disease, it will reactivate that as well. In my body, it couldn't find anything else apart from the former chickenpox virus, so therefore it reactivated the chickenpox virus, ergo giving me shingles. It was disgusting. The most painful thing I've ever been through. Doctor didn't give me medications on time, so nothing. I was just left to fend for myself for about 2 weeks. And then they, when I was crying over the phone and going, please help me, I'm in pain. They were like, okay, let's put you on some antivirals, but it's probably too late now, so we're going to have to use a very big dosage, and it probably won't do much. It did alleviate a little bit of the symptoms, but literally it took 6 months for me to stop getting these like outbreaks. It was the toughest thing ever. But 4 months after that whole ordeal, I started feeling tired. And not just tired, not just like, oh yeah, I need to, slow down. No, I was feeling like beyond exhausted. I was feeling like I'm a baby who can't hold up the head. So I would come to sit down and to trade, and my head would just be like flopping down, like I don't have any muscles in there. Now, if you know anything about me, I was a competitive bodybuilder for like 7 years. So it's like, I'm definitely not an unfit person. I know what I'm doing with diet. I know how to exercise. And I'm a type A personality. I'm somebody who used to work like 16 to 18-hour days. Easy. So anyways, we figured out that something odd was happening. But at the time, there was still this huge belief that the myalgic encephalomyelitis, aka chronic fatigue syndrome, is just a psychological disease. And that's what they told me. So I phoned them up, and the first thing was like, do you have a history of depression? I was like, no, I don't. Are you sure? Any trauma? No. Really? And I was like, does sound depressed? Like, what are we even talking about here? Like, I'm in pain and I'm really tired. I'm sleeping, 14 hours a day, and then I also need naps. I'm unable to leave my bed. It's like, what the actual F is going on? Like, can you just help me? And say, well, we can send you to a cognitive behavioral therapy. And I was like, okay. And I was like, what's that going to do? Well, you need to think positively. I'm like, dude, I'm the most positive, like wildly positive, beyond sort of lunacy positive, optimistic person, which is why I was able to achieve everything in life, even though everybody around me was telling me things are impossible. So I said, you don't know who you're talking to. I said, no, that is not my problem. I'm very optimistic, very positive. And let's face it, you have no idea what's wrong with me, right? And they were like, well, we can run some labs. Let's run some thyroid tests. Because I was at that age, 41, 42. So they ran a thyroid panel. Oh, no, that was another thing. I said, can we run some tests, to see whether any abnormalities are occurring? And I kid you not, she goes, well, what sort of test would you like? It's like, well, you're the doctor. Like, I don't know. And she goes, yeah, thyroid maybe. Thyroid comes back, not just normal, but optimal. Vitamins, minerals, comes back normal. And then she called me up and said, great news, all of your labs are normal. That's the worst thing you can hear, right? And anyways, since then, it's been researched a lot more because a lot of people with long COVID have the same symptoms. It's kind of a similar disease, but because it's so systemic, it's very difficult for people to figure out exact mechanisms. We've just had a massive study called Decode ME in Edinburgh, and they actually discovered, I don't know, about 7 or 8 genetic anomalies that make you more prone to getting ME/CFS. So there are certain advancements, but we still have to wait. I'm functional because I'm actually on antibiotics that are keeping my illness reasonably manageable. So this is why I'm here. Otherwise, without that, I would still be in bed in a dark room with like headphones and earplugs and unable to take any talking, any lights, anything. It was pretty horrendous for the first sort of 18 months. And then I discovered a couple of American scientists that were working on this illness, and they had some kind of fringe protocols to get you out of bed. And one of them was minocycline, because for some reason it tones down the neural inflammation that we all suffer from. So now we know that, it is a biological illness. They don't still have any clue what to do with it or how to treat it properly. There's no cure for now, but the research has finally started moving the needle in the right direction, so to speak. So, I'm hopeful. I'm not really able to socialize much. In fact, this is my social, whenever I go on Topstep broadcast, that's as social as I get. And I can kind of go shopping, but then I need rest. And it's just like, it's annoying more than anything. It's annoying. But I've found ways to kind of control it. However, it does still mean that I have to be very careful with my energy levels because they interfere with my daily functioning. So I'm not hiding it. If my experience and all the stuff that's helped me can help somebody else who's also struggling, I'm all for it. I even have a mobility chair now. So sometimes you will see me zooming around my house like a Bond villain in a motorized mobility aid, primarily because I get dizzy standing up, and my legs feel weak on some days, so I don't want to push that. And in turn, I hope that in the long run, that's actually going to help my recovery by not pushing. So yeah. Electrician wants to know, when do you make the decision to enter a trade? Is it after the first 30 minutes after IB? So that would be a case-by-case basis, depending on the playbook that we're seeing. For this particular one, I entered after the extension and a failure of the auction. So what does that mean? It means that we exit the initial balance. So the red box is the initial balance. We tried to go under, failed, and then closed the 30-minute time frame inside it. So when did I enter? At the close of that 30-minute. Do I sometimes front run these? Yes. Do I advise that anyone dealing with or learning about failed auctions would front run it? No, because you don't know what you're looking at. So you're going to have to develop experience of what the failed auctions really look like, possibly even get some tape watching going in order to figure out whether there is a cause for a true failed auction or not. And if not, then to stay out of it, because not every failed auction is playable. Not every failed auction is a good possibility. Not every failed auction will be an amazing high probability trade. Okay, sometimes you can get partial failed auctions in cases where the initial balance is too large. Sometimes you will get unplayable failed auctions where they just whip it under it and then come back into it and then pretty much rotate through the entirety of the initial balance. In that case, there is no more failed auction because it rotated already. So it's like, unless you have another setup, that's it for the FAs, as I like to call them for short. But yeah, so yeah, it really depends on the playbook. I do love failed auctions because they are mostly high probability on most products, but it does depend on the time of day when they happen. For example, on crude oil, if the failed auction doesn't happen within the first sort of 3 hours of the session, the probabilities of it actually rotating and doing what it needs to do completely fades to very, very low, sort of 8% occurrences. And in fact, looking back, I can only remember there was one day last year when the late failed auction happened. Was there one this year? I don't think so. And then in all of the years that I've been watching crude oil, there have been maybe like 10 late day range failed auctions into settlement. So really for me, time of day when something doesn't happen also offers me probabilities, right? So if I know that failed auctions on, let's say, crude oil have the highest probability of occurring within the first 3 hours, if I then see a late failed auction on crude oil, I will actually trade against that. I'll be like, oh, F no, this is going to extend even further. There are things like the option expiries on Thursdays. If you're in a nice trending day on crude oil and then you see it turning around for day range fill, I will also stay out of that because I know that Thursdays just keep going. And it's more likely that they're going to attempt it, kind of a dead cat bounce, and then take the lows again. So that's the highest probability trade. Maybe do a little bounce after they take the liquidity. But generally, there is a time component to everything I do. I coined the phrase, time of day is a level, because it is a level. If something happens out of hours, that gives you data. And if something happens at just the right time of day, the probabilities increase. London is a bit trickier for me because it's very early in the day. So some of the data points that I have later in the day are still not available. But we have the initial balance, we have the VWAP, we have certain things that could help. However, I've always found London a little harder to read. I've got to say DAX is easier to read because it tends to just do stuff. What's DAX doing? DAX has failed the auction, that's interesting, but it's against the open sentiment. So let's just have a look at that quickly. So opening above value. So this is the value area down here, 24,161. Opening right on the nose of VWAP, pushing higher into a sustained auction, but then failing. So what's wrong with this picture? Why don't I just go short? Because on the days when we open above value, failed auctions are a lot less probable. So really, one alternative setup, so a couple of them actually, bounce from VWAP, from this previously created demand area. So let's just mark that off. Previously created demand area. So test VWAP. Let's make that a little bit more tight. That'll be one playbook, right? Test VWAP. I actually call that strength inside initial balance setup. When we extend the initial balance, then kind of seemingly do a partial auction, but then run into a strong level inside it and bounce away from it. At this point, I also like to have a look at some options levels. I do convert them from ES because I feel that they actually work really well. We have a core resistance just from the overall options chain at 24,250. So that's right about here. But I wouldn't be opposed to seeing it touch VWAP because that's a high probability thing that DAX likes to do. So that's one. Another one will be a test of the value high at 24,160, and then a bounce from there. If we get to New York session, the value areas are pretty similar actually. So yeah, where is the... Yeah, so slightly lower for the value high for New York, which is 24,150, but it's all like ballpark 30 tick zone there, so yes. But yeah, that's why I will caution you not to kind of jump into every single failed auction. That is not really what probabilities are all about. Let's have a look at more question. RPG 121 D, what's going on tilt mean? You losing the plot and then just entering trade after trade after trade in an attempt to recover the money, and then ending up with a much bigger hole, much redder day than you would have done if you just stopped after the couple of trades that didn't work out. Basically, going on tilt means losing control of your emotions, not being aware of them, and just letting yourself being swooped away into the emotional regulation and the limbic system overload and the sympathetic nervous system overdrive with no self-awareness or introspection. So yeah, basically losing your shit. That's what it means. Hurts a lot to people in this game. Short life hacks. I like being antisocial. I accepted less baggage from people. Yeah, I'm kind of heading in that direction the older I get. So, yeah. Yeah. So, short life hack says, I think the Ronavax took my vitality down partially. Couldn't day trade, so started coding my strats. Gold is king. Yeah. Yeah, so I do know that shingles reactivate for old people, but I did not. So here's the thing. When I spoke to the doctor, she was saying to me, you're too young to have it. That's just for old people, which is complete nonsense. If you've ever had chickenpox, they can actually reactivate at any point, whether you're 20, whether you're 12. So let's say somebody had chickenpox when they were a baby. When they're 12, 14, 20, every time they're stressed, it can reactivate. But, you know, so it's not just for old people. And it certainly has nothing to do with me being in my 40s. Yeah. But yeah, sorry to hear that, short life hacks. But hey, at least you automated what you're doing, right? So there's something out of it. We already had like mechanical trading systems, so I was already there. And you can even see it, like if I watch myself from before the injury, and if I'm like watching how I am right now with decision making, I'm much slower, man. And it's not just the fact that it's 3 or 4 years on. It is definitely some form of brain fog. I do have, my brain is pretty functional, right? It's pretty functional. I can handle a lot, but I do notice that my decision making is not as quick as it used to be, and it annoys the hell out of me. But there's nothing, there's nothing I can do about it. So yeah. What are indicators used? So the lines that you see on my chart are actually taken from another platform. But the ones that you can see here is just a simple VWAP anchored to Globex open. My VWAP is the one that is not the normal one, but I like open, high, low, close divided by 4. So that's the one that I use. I found that one is more accurate for some strange reason than when you first plot the VWAP from Topstep X, is going to be open, high, low divided by 3, but I like this one. So, and then you see 3 moving averages as a ribbon just to kind of show me in the most basic way whether the trend is there, whether we're range bound, even though I have other ways of doing it. And then you have the visible range volume profile, so VPVR. You have some volumes down here. This is just like literally just volume with a moving average for volume. And then the oscillator at the bottom. Let me remove my face so I can show you that. So the oscillator at the bottom is the ATR. And right now it's over 14. And it's telling me that I like to use, I don't use it like Coach Paul does. So right now ATR over the 30-minute time frame is only 10 points, which is pathetic. So it means that the session has not really started yet. Volume hasn't kicked up. So we'll see. Yeah, but those are my indicators. And I use it more for pullbacks. Like let's say we have a sustained auction and then it pulls back by the amount of the ATR, which is a different measure than the levels that I'm using, right? So ATR is calculated by the current time frame and then whatever the previous 14 candles have done. But my ADRs and SRs take the average and they dynamically calculate it depending on either days high and low or session high and low. And then whichever side's exhausted first becomes the exceeded exhausted range for the day. So yeah. And you can have two strategies that are very simple. Either trade towards that level on the context with the trend in the context of the day, or trade against it, right? Once it exhausts, you wait for the price to settle down, stutter, and then slowly to start to reverse from it. But just be mindful that these levels work better in the later parts of the sessions. The earlier that they're exhausted, the more chance of an outlier day that just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And in fact, yesterday, natural gas was pretty much, it smashed right into ADR low immediately at the open for NYMEX and then just ignored it. So that to me was like, okay, well, it's probably, that's why I went into that first short, but then it took half an age to kick off. And then I was like, closed it. So it was like, Muppet moment from D, but there we go. So that will be the Batman slap yesterday, definitely, yeah. Is it advisable to peel off some at the top of IB of it? No, because we're nowhere near, like, what does that do? Unless you're in with like 10, and you can peel off a little bit, but don't do that, because if you're using the same stop as me, not that you should, entertainment purposes only, educational purposes only, right? You're like looking at barely like 6 ticks or whatever. Like it's like 1, 2, 3, like barely 9, 10 ticks. Like what are we talking about here? It's until you get like, look, I'm not in favor of people peeling anything off. So if you want to get net 2R multiples, which is what will make your risk system really stable, and you won't need 80% accuracy to keep it stable either and to remain profitable. You really shouldn't be partialing before you get to 2R. Because only when you get to 2R and you take half off, you have a zero risk trade. So what people do, I spoke about this yesterday, is that they happily take the full stop out of, let's say in this case, it would be minus 35 ticks on full position size. But then it moves a little bit in their favor, like 10 ticks, and they take half off. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, why not take the half off when it gets to minus 10 ticks? Not plus 10. Like, what are we doing here? It's all the opposite. Like, in the way people's minds work, it's just not. I'm a left-handed person, like, through and through. So it's like, why are we taking profits off at, like, non-statistically viable areas? And yet taking full stop outs. Why? If the partial profits are so good for your buffers, and then you do all that work, and then one stop out that you don't want to give up early, it completely derails your profits. So you've done like 5 trades of grasshoppering. Oh yeah, took 10 ticks. Because and then one stop out erases all of that work. Like, it's just like, ugh, you know, I just cannot get behind the negative risk reward at all. Sorry. because from the numbers that I'm a data person, right? And I know how difficult it is to maintain 75, 80% accuracy. And don't you think it's a little weird that a lot of YouTubers who are claiming high accuracy, they keep blowing up accounts, and then most of them will never actually show you just one account that they've held on to for like a year and what the actual accuracy is of that account. Like my one is like 43% over 12 years of trading. That's all it is, right? Do I have periods when I'm smashing it and when it's like 80%? Yeah. But I'm not going to base my risk model on the time when everything's going really well. It's like, that's the pinnacle of like trader math. Oh, I've made 80%, I have 80. And let me tell you, after the second season of the VIPs, where all of the scalpers in my group previously, they were like, I have a high accuracy, and then I forced them to trade through 1 month with no resets. Do you know what their accuracy was like by the amount of 70% of them? It was like 23%, 30%, 40%. It was like, you cannot have a negative risk reward if your accuracy is between 20 and 40%. And they're like, I keep blowing up accounts. Yeah, that's why. Like, not to burst anyone's bubble, but, you know, negative risk reward needs high accuracy at all times. It falls like, even at 1-to-1, if it falls to 56%, you're bleeding money, or you're a scratch trader, you're not making money. So, you know, let's just call it like it is. Let's not just live high on hopium that somehow you have high accuracy. When you introduce entropy and chaos over long periods of time, you have no edge. Like, I'm sorry, but you have to be realistic with yourself. You know? What's my box? I can see the highs, but why now the low? The box here is just the initial balance. So it's the first hour of London. And it started like I just took the high and the low and then extended it. But this is basically the initial balance. So one 30-minute chart, second 30-minute chart, that's an hour. And then we extended it, and now we're just sitting inside it. Technically, it rotated, but it's such a small initial balance that I'm just using it for a directional move. I'm not using it for actual targets. If you had a big initial balance, it's like 50 ticks, I would be using that as my target. But right now, because this is out of hours, very quiet, we only have like 26 ticks on the whole thing. I'm actually looking at the larger time frame picture, and I'm looking at 4 hours, looking at the fact that on the very large time frames, we're coming into those demands, that we had these big candles yesterday. So some sort of a recovery, or at least a partial pullback to like 50% of that move, which is incidentally where my target is. It's very, very high probability. So I do not want to keep shorting until we get to NYMEX and they show me that that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So I just read what's on the chart. I don't try to predict anything. I just try to read what's in front of me with as least biases as possible, while keeping in mind what's happening on higher time frames as an assumption or what is most likely, if that makes sense. So yeah. But we still need volume. Like, until the volume comes in, it's very, very quiet. This is why I would want to trade DAX, because we talked about it. And I said 250 was where, you know, really they were looking for a bounce, and here's the bounce. But, you know, what good is it for me to tell you, hey, yeah, I'm going to be long DAX in my own account when we can't yet trade it? So, but it is the only thing that's moving. Compared to natural gas at 26 ticks, and then copper at 41 ticks. I mean, wow, what a range, right? It's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with that. And then gold at, all right, gold is moving, but again, gold is hitting some levels that I'm not really happy about. So I would like to see a retest of 410. Don't like trading gold in the morning, I will be perfectly honest, especially not before the LME opens, which won't happen for another hour. So when that happens, gold is going to liven up even more. So I prefer to trade it then. And actually, if you see my stats and go into, sometimes there is a line by Coach T that says, your most profitable time of day is between 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. Try to focus on that. It's like, yeah, man, I have a have a show to run in the morning, man. Like, how am I supposed to focus on 12? I sit here like a lemon and do nothing, just talk to you. So yeah, my highest probability trades are after 9 a.m. Central. So just know that. DAX, no, but DAX is higher, and it's usually between 9:30 and 12, which is why, incidentally, these shows were created, because that's when I usually get DAX trades. Yeah, we'll get it. It's all right. A little bit difficult, but we've learned some new things. I can't really complain because it really forced me to get outside of my own comfort zone and just go, we're doing 3 DAX. I'm like, well, let's see what moves. And then Carl Hungus actually was the one who said, D, have a look at copper in the morning. And I'm like, hey, it's precious metals. I kind of know stuff about it. Let's have a look at it from a technical perspective. So I did. And when we're in normal times of the day, of the year, it bloody moves. So I do like it, but it's August, so nothing's moving. And therefore me smashing like 1 million copper trades in the day, probably not the best choice. So I'm being super selective. I'm being overly selective with the types of trades that I want to take. And when, too. NQ hit 24K. Yeah, that is where the core resistance is. But it being an equity index, I expect a little wiggle away from it. Maybe hit the gamma wall at 950 and then carry on higher. If it starts to bleed back down on NQ, we have 23,900 along with put support just underneath it at 890 as a potential strong level where this mad summer rally could just continue. But remains to be seen. I don't like NQ. You know that. How low do you expect oil to go daily since Trump wants to push it down to pressure Putin into peace? Look, as much as he wants to pressure anyone, the fact remains that Russia is the second largest oil exporter in the world after Saudi Arabia. If Putin wants to push it back up, all he needs to do is just close the tap on one of the refineries. That's it. So just put that into perspective when you're talking about Trump pushing oil anywhere, yeah? I'm not in a trade for DAX. I would still like to see it at least touch VWAP. So that is... Satori, I traded platinum quite a lot. It is the second choice of trade, but it's gone bonkers on the ranges, man. Like, it's gone to the point where, like, remember that platinum doesn't have micros? And we're talking prop accounts. Like, there's really no point in me telling you to trade platinum if somebody's in a 50K account. Like, that would be very irresponsible for me. Why? Because if you look at... so I'm just going to go back in time to just show you what sort of ranges we're working with. So here's a 30-minute time frame. This candle is 120 ticks wide. The next one, all in like a 30-minute period. The next one, 194 ticks. Now, the way I create my stop losses, I take the session range and then I divide it by a certain number that I want to achieve. And even if I look at the ATR, which I use 9 during the regular trading hours, it was 120 ticks. So that would mean your stop loss would have to be 120 ticks per one trade. Now, knowing how grasshoppery a lot of people are, they want to do multiple trades. But let's calculate 120 ticks by 5. You'll be risking $600 per one singular trade on platinum. If you don't, you can maybe get away with like 50, 60 ticks. But largely, you will get whipped out. Like, if you're wrong, you will lose 600 and 300 and so in a flash, like in a blink of an eye. You blink, it's gone. And platinum does do these like teleportations because it's a thin market. So you can't, you just can't trade platinum at this time of the year, the way it's moving, the ranges that it currently has, with like 30 ticks to make it more sensible. So for me to say to people, guys, I did a great platinum trade. I used a 140 tick stop, and yes, it reached the target of 3R. But yeah, go ahead and like risk $700 that like I did on an account where you can lose $2,000 overall to start with. And again, I'm very good at moderating myself, so I'm not going to be going and spending, doing like 5-6 platinum trades. I will try once at a point where I believe it has the most chance of working out. I will use a bigger stop loss to make sure that my trade can account and survive at least 2 30-minute candles in an average. And, same reason why I don't talk about silver. I do trade silver. I actually like it better than gold. But it's too big for these accounts, It's too big. Risk control should be first. And again, seeing how many people are totally unwilling to change their ways and to go, hey, D, yeah, I'm going to become more selective today. I will only trade 3 trades per day. 1 maybe for London if you trade London, 1 for post and my cut, and then 1 I'm going to do for power hour. Because that's how I do things, right? I have an attempt of like a couple of trades for London. I have a couple of trades for post and my cut time zone. And then if I'm still looking to trade, which on most days I won't be, I might do a power hour trade, But for the most part, I'll just stop at 5 or 6, that's enough. But, say that to a trader who's doing 50 trades a day and they're like, what do you mean? How am I going to grasshopper in and out of NASDAQ on 3 trades per day? Well, you don't. Move to YM. NASDAQ. But I love it. I need NASDAQ in my life. It's so good. I like it. And I'm like, do you also like it when it smacks you in the face and you lose all your accounts? Do you like that as well? Do you like pain? Yeah. So yeah. Goal direction at the moment. Well, up, right? We don't need to complicate it. Up towards 34.20. But, I don't have a good setup for gold yet. Sleepless says 3 trades per day, I could never. But why? Doesn't that tell you that you've become more selective and more mature as a trader? Rather than smashing in every opportunity. What was that saying? Be a sniper, not a machine gun. Yeah? To me, it shows a lot more skill when you're sitting, waiting, and then you get your playbook, and then you just go, it will either work or it won't. But I know that the playbook is based on what I've seen before. The playbook is based on X, Y, and Z, these 3 conditions that I'm always looking for that particular playbook. And then you can just sit in the trade and just go, okay, I'm just waiting now. There's no stress. There's no, huge fear, butterflies in your stomach. You're not supposed to trade with butterflies in your stomach. If you do, you're not doing it right. Or you're not confident. Or you still need experience to nail down your playbooks. I mean, most of you don't even have playbooks. Let's face it. Let's be real. I'm not bashing anyone. I'm not. Because we all have to start somewhere. But I'm quite surprised at the level of the amount of people that spend like 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. They still don't have well-defined playbooks. It's like, what have you been doing all this time? Just sitting down, clicking buttons? Like, what are we doing here? So yeah. You're not supposed to have pain, Sleepless, when you're trading. Trading is supposed to be painless. Yeah, celebrate the winners, but also celebrate the controlled losers. Because it means you stopped. Celebrate the discipline behind it. There's a guy who said that during one of the the sessions on the main broadcast, that he flogs himself, like he kind of hits himself in the face whenever he has a loss. And I'm like, but what if the loss was a result of a playbook that simply didn't work out? Like, we're talking probabilities here. Like, do you still hit yourself in the face? Like, how does that work? I'm really intrigued. And he's like, oh no, every time I lose a trade, I hit myself. It's like, interesting. You know, there is a bad loss that was a result of you not following the rules and not following playbooks and doing Muppet moment things. And then there's the ones that are controlled. Well-defined risk. Simply didn't work. Celebrate that. I know it's not easy to lose, but like in this game, you have to be okay with getting hit in the chin and just take it on the chin and then just go, okay, next. Be more Ariana Grande, right? Thank you, next. Thank you, next. Sing that to yourself every time you take a control loss. Thank you, next. Yeah, well, after all of those hits, I would say he definitely has brain damage. If you're smacking yourself in the face every day. Yeah. High Life says, I can't take more than one trade if I don't take profit the first one. Too much trading is illness. I wouldn't say illness. I would say just inexperience and not enough control over your emotions. You're a bit hot, Lenny. I'm sorry. I'll be done soon. My old deaf cavalier, he's just woken up and he's very hot in the office. So, yeah. Trading Nickel says, I met someone once that has trouble feeling anything, but still hit yourself in the face every time. I know, it's a bit extreme, right? Also trained to be a boxer or something, I hope. Yeah, I hope that too, because otherwise... Like, imagine if you were... Because I worked in prop trading offices, right? And imagine there's a guy in there and you lose a trade and you see him like... Like, that would be, you know, it's like... What just happened? You know, it would be very uncomfortable, so yeah. Paul H. says, I got all my playbooks from Topstep coaches, then refined them to suit my style of trading. Yeah, that's exactly what you should be doing, you know. Hold as long as possible when it's working, cut it super fast when it isn't. Yeah, so you see how Paul is saying, we saw Paul last week, he was here with us, so he says, cut it quickly. But that's a bit of a vague statement. I would say attach a time to cutting quickly. So I have a rule that if I enter a trade and then the first step that it does within the first sort of 5 minutes, it goes against me by minus 0.5 R, that's an immediate cut. That's what I did on copper because I was like, I don't want to see that. But let's say natural gas went into some profit, still quiet, not really making a move. I'm willing to sit this one out, but I will still cut it if we get to like, you know, 12 o'clock and it still hasn't made a move. It's just like sitting down. It means that we have a quiet London on our hands. And that means I have to cut this trade wherever it is, whether it's scratch, whether it's minus or slightly minus or minus 0.7 R, and then just wait it out. Just wait it out. Wait for post and my cut, the highest probability time zone. Trading Nickel says, so after Jerome's trading, my eyes leak more easily at emotion. This includes one eye of literal tears laughing when you read my comment. Yeah, is that a positive? I don't know. Yeah, I suppose so. Be more in tune with your emotions. Hey D, did you look at platinum already? Not today, it's very quiet for now. I just literally barcoding sideways. There is Gex 1 at 1,350. That could be something to consider. It's still hanging outside of value above it. It looks like summer. Looks like summer. So why? Because we are still sitting in that supply that I looked at like last week. We still haven't moved away from it. We're just like, yeah, so this looks like painful summer. We have this 16 moving average, 16 EMA moving average kind of being reactive, so maybe down, but I don't know. I think it's very quiet. Like, why are we still in this area, painful area, of about 200 points on a daily? That should not be happening if it's a trend. So yeah. All right, I'm going to finish it here for the day. That's going to be it. I'm going to see you tomorrow. What day is it today? It's Wednesday. So yeah, I will see you tomorrow for another episode of Euro. The Euro trade? Is that what we're calling it now? The Euro trade. Yes, that's it. Get with it, D. Come on. Snap out of it. Jerome's trading. Yeah, a couple of So Trading Nichols is talking about the neuroplasticity trading. Yeah, there's no doubt that the fact that the stuff that Jerome taught us with visualizations, with self-awareness, with various ways to increase your neuroplasticity, that stands. That's valuable. It's never going away. So he has provided value. It was just like a couple of weird choices that he decided to make, and as a result, he's no longer with us. So we just have to keep going, use that knowledge. And let's answer one final question. Captain Knuckles says, what's your normal max leverage? There is no such thing as max leverage. I usually use, the larger the account, the smaller the size. So I typically will use on my large accounts that have 6 or 7 figures, I use 0.35% per trade for intraday trading. A little bit more for any kind of swings. But for these prop accounts, I am usually sitting at about 1.3% per position size per trade. Very, very conservative, very small. And if I have a great day, I have a great day. If I don't have a great day, I use the number of trades per day first and foremost to stop me. And yes, every so often I might go oversizing a little bit and then going down to like minus $2,000. But on most days, like if I show you my stats here, I'm trying to kind of replicate things that I'm doing because we don't have stats in the live. So you can see that July, very sketchy for me. And you can see that I had one day here, 29th of July, when I overtraded and it didn't really go well. And I still stopped at minus 2.6K. But yeah, it was a struggle. I was like, oh God, short, long. And I was like, what am I doing? So then I stopped and tried again. Never really managed to pull it back. And then when it got to minus 2.6, I'm like, I'm just going to stop. And then August starting out pretty decent. Yesterday scratch day. Today just starting. I just did one trade and this one is not even done yet. So we'll see what happens to that trade. I am going to keep it going until 12. So until another hour. If nothing is happening, if there's no traction on this trade, I'm going to close it and try again post NY cut with maybe some different a different outlook. Like really what I would like to see is for natural gas to climb over 2.85 because at that point we're going to be above value, and to open NYMEX above value. That would make me hold things through the initial balance for NYMEX. If that doesn't happen, I will probably take a partial profit if we're somewhere around there but not quite opening outside of value. But yeah, I'm just going to sit on it. So I'm going to be my D self, the stalker, market stalker D, that are just sitting on trades and waiting for the move to come. But I do have a limit. About 90 minutes into the trade, if nothing's happened, I will cut it. So yeah. Anyways, good to see everyone. Good to chat to everyone. I would like to thank you once again for spending time with me. I do appreciate it. Now, on the way out, don't forget to press the like if you found any value in the stuff that I was talking about. And until tomorrow, I will see you very soon. Enjoy the main broadcasts. That's all from me. This has been the Eurotrade. I'm Marcus Stalker D. Take care.